Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for the full moon in Scorpio, which is at 27 degrees. It's a late degree of Scorpio on May 18th or May 19th, depending on where you live. I happen to be in the Central Standard Time Zone in the United States, and it's going to be at 4:12 p.m. my time. And so this is going to be what is called a full flower moon. And, I think that most people can figure out why. These names were given by the North American, Native American tribes because they wanted to describe the different activities that were happening for that particular month. And I'm getting my information from the Old Farmer's Almanac because they have alternative names for this particular moon. It's so funny because I really like knowing these names. And the name for the one in June is called the Strawberry Moon, and I love that one. But anyway, so I wanted to find the other names. The May full moon also is called the corn planting moon, the milk moon. Now that one, I don't know. I don't know why milk. And mother's moon. So maybe that's connected to the milk. And, well, it says here, I'm just going to read what it says. The May full moon marked a time of increasing fertility, with temperatures warm enough for safely bearing young, a near end to late frosts and plants in bloom. And but the other thing that's interesting about this particular flower moon is that it's called a blue flower moon because it is going to be a blue moon, which really blew my mind because, pardon the pun, because it's actually a different blue moon. Back in April, I do believe that second full moon in Libra on April 19th was also considered a blue moon because when you have two full moons in the same sign. But actually, according to the Old Farmer's Almanac, there's an alternative definition of a blue moon, and I'll just read what it says. Although blue moon is commonly defined as the second full moon to occur within a single calendar month, this is not the traditional meaning of the term. Originally, a blue moon was the third of 4 full moons to occur within one astronomical season. And they go, thanks to the timing of the March full moon, which occurred on the same day as the spring equinox. So that was the first full moon in Libra, and that was at 0 degrees. And the upcoming June full moon, which occurs just a few days prior to the summer solstice, making the May full moon the third full moon in the season of spring. And so I guess that's their definition. And so that's, you learn something new every day, right? So this is a full moon in Scorpio, and it's at 27 degrees. And, I just thought of something because I'm a numbers kind of a person too, in addition to astrology. I really like this symbolism of numbers, of numerology. And it's on the 18th, at least where I am. And the 18 in the tarot is the moon card. So there you go. There's like that moon energy. Oh, wow. You know what's freaky? When I said the word moon, my MP3 recorder froze at 444. And I was just staring at it and I was saying, wait a second, why did it freeze? Because I didn't pause. And then it just kind of jumped forward. So I don't know, man. That was pretty wild. I don't know if that was trying to tell me something, because 444 is something that I have been seeing lately. And, if you know anything about angel numbers, and here I am talking about numerology, so that's pretty wild. And of course, the 1111 and 111 and all that stuff. So, in any case, 18 reduces to a 9. And 9 is the number of the light worker. And it is a number of the artist and would I call it the healer? I guess so. I think light workers are healers. So probably the visionary. That was the word that came into my mind. And I think I've seen that described for the number 9. But now that I think about it, if this full moon is at 27 degrees of Scorpio, that reduces to a 9 as well. So number 9 is the end of a cycle. That 10 sometimes is referred to it in the tarot as well, but 9 definitely is. And full moons can be endings, The other thing about full moons is illumination. And in Scorpio, I feel like this comes from the depth of us, I was remarking in a recent video that I've been feeling this intensity since yesterday, which was May 12th. And I was even wondering whether that was a preview of this full moon. And, sometimes I'm even a little bit skeptical about some of these things. And I say, is it really an influence? But there are times when there have been full moons and I have noticed a certain unusual behavior, erratic behavior, or intense, emotional kinds of behavior coming up. And I'm very aware of that in general. And I noticed this yesterday when I was out and about, and even with myself. And so the point being that Scorpio is the ruler of the 8th house, and its rulers are Pluto and Mars, and both of these planets don't play. They're very, I'd say Mars is driven and Pluto is probing and transformative, but the transformation can be a little bit messy in the interim. And so at the time of a full moon, when emotions are heightened and you have it in Scorpio, suffice it to say that there can be this, the big reveal. You can have people that finally just bare their soul and let the chips fall where they may. And that can be life-altering, depending on what it is that they're revealing. So I would say that personal relationships, and the closer the relationships are, the more likely that they can be affected by this. And when I say affected, I want to make it clear that it doesn't have to be negative at all. Some people may drop their defenses because Scorpio is about, or especially Pluto is about, ripping off the mask, the facade, and getting down and dirty, you know what I mean? Getting down into the marrow of a situation and getting intimate. This is the house of intimacy. But of course, everyone's mind always goes into the gutter. And I'm being facetious, talking about sex and saying it's the gutter. But I'm saying just limiting it to that type of expression. That can be an illusion, that the person thinks that they are being intimate with somebody emotionally because they're intimate with them physically. And so we have to really understand that emotional intimacy can be the most frightening thing of all, because it renders us vulnerable. The eighth house is the house of mystery, of psychology, of the shadow. So the full moon is so bright, and it's so, like I said, illuminating, that there can be a lot learned here. But the cost may be, I wouldn't say the cost is great, but it's something that you have to have the guts to face. And you know what? If you're the kind of person that really wants a meaningful romantic relationship, you have to be like a soldier, as far as I'm concerned. And you have to be a soldier of love. I feel like that's the name of a song. I'm going to have to look that up after I'm done here. But I really feel that way. I think that there's a certain bravery that is required when you love somebody, no holds barred. But maybe that's just because I have the sun in the eighth house. Who knows? So other things that are happening here, we have to remember that whenever there's a full moon, the sun is opposing it. And the sun is our ego, our aspirational self, the part of us that wants to make a mark in the world and to share our individuality. And it's opposing the emotional. And it's also dealing with relationships here. The axis of Taurus and Scorpio are money houses. Taurus is the second house of the money that you earn, and the eighth house, Scorpio, is shared resources. And this is another area where we can merge our finances, or we can keep ours separate, and neither one is wrong and neither one is right, because sometimes it's wrong to merge finances, and sometimes it's wrong to just keep everything to yourself. It's situational, but since we're looking at the material also with this particular opposition, we can look at manifestation and see, like, what are our attitudes about being able to attract resources. And it's interesting because these two signs are fixed signs. And sometimes we get very stubborn about our, in our belief system. And I remember years and years ago, I can't even remember how many years ago this was, but I attended, my church that I used to attend frequently. They were having this prosperity workshop, and they were one of the activities that we had to do was to kind of bust all of the sayings or the myths that we had been told by others, like, for instance, parents or society itself about money, like money doesn't grow on trees. And that was my first exposure with that kind of like law of attraction kind of thing. And back then I was very, very cynical. And I thought, this is just a way for these people to make money, holding these workshops. I thought it was greedy. And, I'm really kind of surprised and amused at how much I've changed since then, while still being balanced about it. And, it's interesting because this opposition can be two extremes. You know what I mean? So, looking at kind of very set in your ways attitudes that you have about material resources and questioning them. And at the same time, if there is greed, and greed is, to me, fear-based. Greed says that there's not enough to go around, or in the future, there might not be enough to go around. So I have to stockpile things now. And I can't let you have much of what I have, because then I won't have as much. And so to me, greed is coming from a position of fear. And, I think sometimes people misunderstand that, and they think it's a position of strength in the form of cockiness, of like, hey, I have all this money. But really, it can be fear of the possibility of not having in the future. And really kind of think about this, because the moon is, to me, also those fears that may come even from other lifetimes, who knows, and that they spur us on to action through our emotional reactions. So with the moon in Scorpio, there's a sense of retention. I was going to say anal retention, but actually it might actually be that, because if you know anything about the chakra system, the first chakra, I think, is in the eliminatory, I don't know how to say that, organ or organs. Well, I think maybe both of them. And that, I think, is associated with Scorpio. I'll have to check that. I'm kind of a wealth of vague knowledge. But so anyway, looking at some of the other personal planets that are happening here and some of the aspects, I think this is really a good time for prosperity. I try not to listen to other astrologers before I make these, because I don't want to unintentionally copy them or anything like that. So I haven't really done that, but just by something else I was listening to, and they referenced it, I thought that somebody said that it was going to be pretty, I don't know if they said it was going to be challenging. I think people are talking about this square between Jupiter and Neptune, which has been a thing. And, so this is nothing new for us, but it feels frustrating, because it feels like we can't trust anything to be true. And when we feel like we're being lied to, and this could even be just like in the what I would call, I was going to say the media, but we could even say, like, I was going to say pop culture, but I don't want to make this political, but something to do with I guess I would say, for lack of a better word, the media, what we're hearing from the outside world. And if there's a lot of distortion there, it can be discombobulating, because even if you're somebody who doesn't watch the news, you still get snippets of information, and then you get contradictory things, and you don't know what to believe. And that probably is intentional. But the thing is that it can happen in your personal life as well. And so the bottom line is, if you know anything about, in yoga, they talk about Maya, which means worldly illusion. This is like a perfect example of it. And this is not the only example. This transit is not the only example. The Matrix, that is just in itself, being part of this world. And feeling like you're in this system, that it's, par for the course. And we can acknowledge that it's out there and choose not to be sucked into it, because we begin to declare our independence and think for ourselves. And I feel like there's a lot of good stuff here. Mercury is in Taurus, although it is in opposition to the moon. And therefore, there may be this kind of like extreme going back and forth between the intellect and the emotion, which you could even characterize to some degree between that sun in Taurus and the moon in Scorpio. Not that Taurus is associated with the intellect, but the earth, the rational, and the emotional. It's about finding middle ground, obviously. We don't want extremes, especially since Scorpio itself can really come across as an extreme type of a sign. And if there are any Scorpios listening, this isn't meant as a slam. It's meant that you really, I think you want to feel things at the deepest possible level. And if it doesn't, move you, you're almost indifferent. And so we may all be feeling like this, of like emotionally being carried away. And then maybe sometimes feeling like we have to put a stop to that. And then, being too much in the so-called rational side. And so there's not that balance when you have that opposition. It's like a seesaw effect. But besides that, these oppositions, and Mars is also opposing Jupiter. So again, a lack of balance between, like biting off more than you can chew and trying to do too much. I do feel that this is really great for manifestation. The sun is trining Saturn, and Mercury is trining Saturn. Great for concentration of your goals. Great for, even planning your future goals. And with the sun in Taurus and a later degree of Taurus, it's really about realizing those goals. And trines are easy manifestors of things. So it could even be like an instant manifestation, possibly. But the other thing too is some beautiful angles to Neptune. And to me, that's part of the manifestation process, because Neptune is, envisioning things. So we have the moon trining Neptune, so harnessing that intensity of Scorpio, which can really be something that moves mountains. Scorpio is incredibly powerful. Pluto is incredibly powerful. Pluto can indicate wealth. Pluto can indicate just supreme, to me, well, at least to me, supreme confidence and supreme success and wealth. All of the things, even like on a worldly level, that some people attain or seek to attain. I feel like Pluto is all about that. But you have Neptune, which is all about the spiritual. And we need the spiritual in order to manifest the physical. We need that, not only that inspiration, but that actual cooperation with the creative forces. And we have Mercury sextiling Neptune, and Mercury is your consciousness. And a sextile is another positive angle. I don't really like to use the word positive, but it's another easier angle, angle that is not challenging. So it's easier to manifest things. And there are even friendly angles to Pluto. The sun is trining Pluto, so that can help you to aspire to that willpower that is needed also for goals. We talk a lot about goal setting, and I'm saying in society, and discipline and organization, but what is behind organization? I would say it is willpower. You have to have the will in order to accomplish your goals. It's not enough to have the vision. You have to have the will so that you can do things consistently. So that trine is perfect for that, and a sextile between the moon and Pluto. So, emotions, I think, can be debilitating unless you harness them in a positive and powerful way. And so with this sextile between the moon and Pluto, it's using your emotions, having the willpower so that you're able to stay in a high vibration. People that I feel who tend to, be plagued with doubt, it's because they maybe like sometimes are very inspired and they're like kind of grooving, and then all of a sudden they have a debilitating thought. They think of something where, a time when they failed, a time when somebody said a certain thing to them, and they begin to then spiral downward. And the thing is that I feel that this sextile between the moon and Pluto can make it so that you are able to apply your will to your emotions and control your emotions, have mastery over them so that they're not ruling you. There's going to be a trine between Mercury and Pluto. So a sextile between Mercury and Neptune, a trine between Mercury and Saturn, and a trine between Mercury and Pluto. Amazing for focus, empowering thoughts, and manifesting these into physical reality. So suffice it to say, I think that this is a very fertile new moon. And actually, from what I understand, the water signs, when the moon is full moon is in water, that can be fertile, like for women too. So, just a heads up there. And then I wanted to say that Venus and Mars form a sextile. So this can be good for relationships where there's cooperation and there's an understanding of, Venus is very much about beauty and cooperation and grace, and Mars is about passion and sexual energy versus the romantic energy and, like physical attraction, but also that get up and go. And when we have too much of that, we have one-dimensional relationships, romantic relationships that are not really feeling a sense of appreciation for another person's personality and their positive traits. It's really just kind of like carnal desire. But if you have just the Venus and you don't have the Mars, you can have a very polite relationship, almost like a platonic relationship. And that can be wonderful in a certain context. But when you have both, that's when you have a romantic relationship where you have where you are magnetically drawn to that person. And when I say carnal, I'm half joking. It's just like this pull that you have to that person. Physical attraction doesn't mean that you're attracted to somebody because they look like a model. That's not what physical attraction is. It can be kind of hard to define, actually, but it's there. There's like this kind of a pull to that person, and so definitely with this Taurus Scorpio axis, that is also another theme. Is that kind of attraction that occurs at both the physical level, but also at the more karmic or spiritual, emotional level. So anyway, I don't want to make this, oh wow, this is going to be so intense, but it could be. And you know what? It could be the best thing that ever happened to us, because we do have a very superficial society that tends to kind of gloss over deeper issues in life. And sometimes things must be brought out into the light of day. And it can feel very uncomfortable if you are used to kind of like just keeping things shallow, to have a heart-to-heart talk with somebody. But it can be liberating too, and it can be very enlightening. And even if it's only within yourself, if you're having this, I don't know if I'd say conversation with yourself, but exploration of some of these shadow issues, you can find that you are very liberated by what you are discovering within yourself. So I'm sure that come Monday morning, after this weekend of this happening, we might have some interesting stories to share with one another. Actually, I just realized something. If it's occurring at 4:12 p.m. my time, oh my goodness, because that's going to be Saturday night. So that should be pretty interesting. So in any case, I'm going to leave it here, and good luck to everybody. Enjoy it. Take care. Bye.